Hey UConn Nation, it's KK Arnold here. If you're looking for the latest UConn women's basketball content, go subscribe to listen up to Phil and Ryan. Go Huskies!
Well, it's crazy, Ryan, right? Because someone came through not too long ago on this podcast and they commented and they said, Phil and Rye, this is an historic time for you guys because you're going to see a lot of firsts. And this was a first for Texas and this was a first for UConn. So we're on the wrong side of history, Ryan, with a lot of these firsts. But guess what? The UConn Huskies women's basketball team fall to the Texas Longhorns, Ryan, for the first time in program history. Hats off to Texas. For the first time, they have defeated the UConn Huskies. First time ever. Texas Longhorns, Ryan, 80-68, a final score. I'll turn it on over to you. I know you have a lot in this game recap. I have a lot to talk about after your recap. Some referee officiating calls that I wasn't too happy with. Usually I don't get into that. Go back and look at all the episodes you want, Ryan, over 200 some videos, right? Usually I don't talk about that kind of stuff, but man, when you have a call on, they wanted to say Caden Samuels, but we'll talk about that later on after you get done your game recap. Kind of bad waste of time looking at that foul as far as Caden Samuels goes, in my opinion. Yeah, not an intentional foul on Caden Samuels. Then when UConn starts to come back in the fourth quarter, no call on Aaliyah Edwards. I
Yeah.
hopefully you can give me some explanation on that because I want it, Ryan, from Frederick to Middletown. It's a game recap on Listen Up.
Well, we've definitely seen a lot of firsts on this podcast, that's for sure, since we've been covering UConn. Today definitely wasn't the first time. We've seen it already this season. We've seen it a lot last season as well. But freshman Ice Brady makes her first career start today, joining Nika, Paige, Aubrey, and Aaliyah in the starting five. And this is really the lineup that I've personally wanted to see for a while. I'm glad Gino put it out there today. I wanted to see what they could do together for today's game. Right out of the gate, though, Texas starts the game out on a 15-3 run. Madison Booker, Rori Harmon, Shaylee Gonzalez on fire. Also, Texas, they just average only 4 made three-pointers a game. They were 3 for 3 in the first 3 minutes of the game. That's just pretty much how, UConn's opponents have really shot the ball against them. That's really the luck that UConn has had throughout this whole season so far. But the first quarter from Rori Harmon today, 11 points, 4 assists. She missed last year's matchup for Texas, and you could tell she was really looking to make a difference for Texas today, and she did just that. But for UConn, I like the aggressiveness from Aaliyah. She had 7 points in the first, but Texas holds on to an 8-point lead going into the second. UConn started the second quarter out in a zone defense, trying to stop the Longhorns' offense. Unfortunately, didn't really help that much. They quickly switched back to a man-to-man defense. They tried going to that zone look at different points during the game later on in the second half. From what I noticed, it didn't help at all. It didn't stop the Texas Longhorns offense at any point in that game. But I'd say for about 2 minutes straight then after that in the second quarter, almost on every single possession, there was a foul called. Couple of ticky-tack fouls that you mentioned, you're going to get into it later, that was called. I feel like that was it felt like it was throughout the game. A couple fouls that, couldn't have been called. It's always a rough game to call, but today there was definitely a lot of fouls called that maybe shouldn't have been. But Ice Brady made a jumper. Aaliyah was staying aggressive, and she was really one of the players that needed to step up for UConn. Huskies struggled some to get that full court press going, and really they just couldn't stop Texas at all from scoring the ball, no matter what they threw at them. But they were playing some tough defense, Texas was, and really limited UConn's offense. We knew Texas would come to play today. Too many turnovers, not enough rebounding for UConn. Texas took a pretty big lead into the half, 41-27. Second half really started the same way the first half did, with Texas just unable to miss. Rori Harmon, Madison Booker had outstanding performances. Amina Muhammad got her fair share of points and rebounds. Shaylee Gonzalez had a good game as well. And again, it just seemed like too that Texas was just too much to handle. It's really hard to beat a team that just can't seem like they miss. UCLA didn't miss much, and Texas today is just consistently couldn't miss from the field. But in the third quarter, again, UConn struggled to rebound, continued to turn over the ball. UConn went on a 7-0 run and threatened to make it close, but then again, Texas goes on another run and pulls away. And that's something else I wanted to bring up. We always say basketball is a game of runs, and Texas did a good job when UConn went on a run to kind of contain UConn and not allow them to get really close to their lead. And on the other side, when Texas would go on a run, it just seemed like UConn couldn't really do anything to stop that run at all. And it really allowed Texas to pull away at different parts in the game. Huskies go on, or they got within 6 points. It was a really surprising fourth quarter turnaround from UConn. Really got the offense going. I like that they didn't give up. They put a lot of effort into that fourth quarter. It got a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. Got within 6 minutes there, the final 2 to 3 minutes in the game. But unfortunately, again, UConn finds themselves in a deep hole. They never led during this game. Got in a deep hole for pretty much the whole entire game until the end there, and UConn suffers their third loss of the season, the earliest they have lost 3 games since the season in 1986, and Texas handles UConn pretty easily today in Austin, Texas. You're still on mute.
That's how this evening is going, huh? Yeah, with me reading all kinds of stuff on, I didn't want to interrupt you during your great game recap. Yeah, with me reading stuff right now on social media, I would be very quick, Ryan, but man, so we have stuff coming in like, all right, so this person goes, funny how it works for UConn women's basketball when the refs don't bail them out. Yeah, Texas dominated. Hats off to them, but I don't know. I'm not too sure about this comment, Ryan. Let me tell you, because in the last previous episode, I talked about getting off to fast starts. For people that do not like UConn, they won't admit it, and that's fine. How many times, Ryan, even before that we started this podcast, have we seen legendary UConn women's basketball players come out? You just told me earlier today, come out and the game is basically over at halftime. You know what I mean? So, don't go there with me about refs bailing them out and all that. We know how dominant this team can be, and I think they still can be. We forget how many points are actually sitting on the bench due to injury. Yeah, I know people don't want to hear excuses, but it's funny, Ryan, how these top teams, all of a sudden when they start losing, you and I, and then other people tend to forget how many points are usually sitting on the bench. So don't forget that, Ryan. I'm not going to name the players. You already know who's out, who we're missing. Yeah, so I just want, I don't know, man. It's funny how this person said funny how it works for UConn when the refs don't bail them out. It's just funny altogether how a winning culture gets targeted, right? When they start losing. No, Ryan, but yeah, hats off to Texas. When you talk about, I thought I was going to be saying Taylor Jones' name a lot more today. I'll say it how it is. It's inexcusable, really, for UConn. When you had Taylor Jones held at 0 points at halftime, and you're still trailing by, 14? So there's that. But today we had Madison Booker, the 2 big names, and then Rori Harmon. Rori Harmon put on a show today, Ryan. And what stood out to me was a highlight at halftime that showed in the first half of how Rori Harmon was guarded by like 3 UConn women, right? 3 UConn women all at one time. It's hard to run the floor and play defense if you're going against a player that talented in Harmon, right? Because when you have 3 defenders on one young lady, that left her vision, Harmon's good enough, her vision to see who else is open. And she moves so well at the top of the key. She contributes down inside the paint so well. It's just, and again, passing the ball, passing and shooting. So Harmon basically, but I just go back because I want you to look at that episode again, Ryan, the last check-in that we did. I talked about the UConn women trying to eliminate the slow starts. And again, today, it happened all over. How many times have we seen the UConn women jump out to fast starts and the game has been over at halftime? Today was different, Ryan. And again, I bring that up again and again because you take away the first quarter, okay, and then you put in some of the injured players that are on this team, although I understand you can't do that. But let's just go ahead and say, let me stick to what I'm trying to say here. You take away that big first quarter of what I told you about in the last check-in, would we be looking at a different result? Because you had Aaliyah Edwards step up so big today. You had KK Arnold come off the bench with, I loved KK's effort today. That's arguably the best. I mean, she shows up every game, but KK Arnold, that effort that we saw driving to the rim today, this is the kind of, this UConn women's basketball team made me eat my words up from a couple episodes ago when they earned the victory over, what was it, Kansas? Because I said, well, Ryan, a win is a win, but it's still not UConn women's basketball. Ryan, today was a loss, but let me tell you something, Ryan. Today was UConn women's basketball at its best. You don't need to sit here and convince Phil, well, UConn's only good if they win. No, Ryan, I saw a lot of effort that I to be honest with you, it's a loss, but I really liked what I saw today. Really, seriously.
Yeah, I think it could have definitely been a lot worse. I think their effort was there the whole game. I think the intensity could have definitely been a lot higher. And I think that definitely showed, I'd say, towards the end of the second and definitely throughout the third. I think at some points in the game, UConn thought maybe they were out of it. And they really did prove me wrong in the fourth quarter because I thought, pretty much the game was over. But the way they showed up in that fourth quarter to get the game that close when they couldn't pretty much do anything to stop Texas the whole entire game, really got their offense going, put some stops together. And, like I said, they got within 6 points and, maybe if I forget who didn't get the rebound there, a missed shot, missed rebound again. That was really the whole story of the game is missed rebound opportunities. The Longhorns had 16 offensive boards to UConn's 5. That was one story of the game. And another point, Huskies gave up 36 points on 21 turnovers and 20 fouls. So that's pretty much the summary of the game. And that really came down to why UConn lost this game. But, like I said, they really did do a good job to keep it pretty close there in the fourth quarter when the team just, look kind of deflated at some points in the game. But I'm glad we got to see the effort out of this team that I think at some points earlier in the season has been lacking a little bit. So definitely, I'd say we did see an improvement today. Unfortunately, it didn't result in a win.
All right. Well, Ryan, listen to this. Paige Beckers, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 2 steals. Aaliyah Edwards, 22 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. Huskies gave up 36 points on 21 turnovers, had 20 fouls, and the Longhorns had 16 offensive boards to UConn's 5. So second half points are huge nowadays, right? When UConn hits the floor in these games. I just want to say very quickly, to be honest with you, the no call on Aaliyah Edwards as they were coming back in the fourth quarter. What were they? Help me out, Ryan. Like they were down like 4 or 5 or 6 points there toward with like 3 minutes left in the fourth. That was big to me, man. The no call when Aaliyah Edwards hit the deck. So, I guess enough of this, Ryan. We'll get it over to some comments and then we'll head on out. Adam Edmonds, let's see what's trending on Listen Up. So much talent on this guard-heavy team. If we can start knocking down more perimeter shots, we should be able to compete at a high level despite our lack of size. I'm surprised it's taking so long to start meshing as a team. I'm glad he brought that up, Ryan, because that's another point I wanted to bring up. I don't know if I can ever recall a more complete effort and a more complete job well done by this Texas women's basketball team. Rori Harmon, the mid-range shots that she was knocking down. I talked to you about 3-point shots, right? A couple weeks ago, how we have to start seeing more of 3-point, at least attempts and more 3-point knockdowns. You don't need any 3-pointers, Ryan, when you're knocking down mid-range shots like this.
No, it was pretty impressive from Rori Harmon today. And like I said, missed the game last season, and you could definitely tell she had a vengeance out for today. to put on a show in front of the home crowd and really push Texas to this victory. Really impressive from the Texas team. But speaking about the 3-pointers from UConn, only 4 of 10 today, so definitely could have used a couple more of them. But I think overall, I'm not sure if that was really the problem in this game. I think it really did come down to a lot of those missed rebound opportunities. Texas had so many second chance points and so many more extra possessions than what UConn had. And when you look at the box score in this game, you really think it would have been a closer game throughout. But I just really don't think you can't really see that in the box score. Just the amount, more amount of times that that Texas had so many more shots, so many more opportunities than what UConn had today.
Well, I like Richard Bueller commented on our last check-in, and then he commented during the game. So I like that a lot. When they come back and comment and leave their thoughts while the game is on. So we want to appreciate that effort too from all of our subs. Richard Bueller says, "Good show, boys. I'm a little surprised at your predictions, at least the dominance of Texas." Well, Ryan, we weren't far off on the score. I haven't seen them play. If will depend on which batch of Huskies show up to play. Like always, we should know within minutes of tip-off how they will play. I agree with you guys about the shooting. This last game, I saw them pass the ball 3 or 4 times, giving up good shots doing so. Those freshmen and the subs have to start taking those shots and stop trying to feed the stars. I don't blame Paige for this. You can tell she's playing with everything she has, but she's guilty of giving up easy shots for dishes that the bigs cannot finish. I'm hoping to see Edwards get to scoring too. Aubrey is a real key. She's a proven player, and Gino should encourage her to score every time she gets a touch. Caroline hasn't scored significantly yet this season. KK should have a green light too and give Shade some minutes. Let her go. Thanks, guys. See you soon. I'm not going to point out every mistake because it happens. Nobody's perfect. But yeah, I mean, KK Arnold at one point, Ryan, had a great look to the rim and even Aaliyah Edwards gave her a nice block under the rim. If for some reason, we don't know, KK Arnold never took the shot. But again, look, Ryan, you're talking about a freshman and new and upcoming right on the scene. So again, 100%, I love what I'm seeing out of KK Arnold in her freshman year. But, Richard Bueller brings up a good point. Sometimes you have to start what the defense gives you. Sometimes you just have to take it. You can't always force the ball into the bigs' hands.
Yeah, and I'd say today for Texas, the defense didn't really allow Paige to get going, especially in the first half, kind of limited the attempts and the amount of shots that she had. Only 13 points. I say only. She was second on the team in points. But for Paige, that's obviously a little low. But I do like the more balanced offense today that we saw from UConn. Paige doesn't have to score 20-plus points. And I really did like that UConn's offense looked a little new and refreshed today, which was good. And again, they went on a couple of those runs, a really big run towards the end of that game it felt like they were getting back into it. And that was with some of the freshmen on the court, which has happened multiple times in the season. So again, I think the freshmen played really well today, all 4 of them. Unfortunately, Aubrey Griffin, she had a beautiful performance in the last game against Kansas, and today, unfortunately, it didn't really show up too much in today's game. And that's something that Aubrey, we know she can have these really good performances, but it seems like she's either really good or she just can't really get it going. So I think for her, trying to find that middle ground to really, show up on both sides of the ball and stay consistent with that would really go a long way in helping this UConn team, I think, really, get to that next level of where they need to be.
All right. Congratulations to Vic Schaefer, head coach, Texas Longhorns and company. They get the victory over UConn for the first time ever, Ryan. So maybe things can turn around, Ryan. Last check-in coming up later this week, and Ball State comes to UConn. UConn home for the first time, Ryan, I think since we were there.
It's
to see
been a while,
Maryland, to see Maryland and UConn. So nothing like home sweet home. Maybe the Gamble Pavilion will provide a nice scenery, like always. We witnessed that, right, a couple weeks back, so we know what that provides. Maybe stuff will get back on track against the Ball State Cardinals. Stay right here for the last check-in. Phil and Rye on Listen Up.